All right, I'm just going to get into it because it looks like we've got a good number here, and quite frankly, I'm pretty busy today, so I want to get to it and hopefully get to the value, and we can all go on with our respective days. Last week was really interesting with just the volume of people who showed up. We've got leftovers from last week who I can see kind of filing in right now. But again, if you haven't seen last week's presentation on how to leverage LinkedIn events, go back and check that out when you can, because it's this is only getting more valuable as LinkedIn continues to dive deeper into this space. And if you're doing if you're following a disciplined social selling process, you will get the reach that you're getting from your posting and from those other avenues that you're pursuing within LinkedIn. I was chatting with somebody who was on the call who tried the LinkedIn events and got increased reach, but not the type of reach that I experienced last week. I think, I'm getting a lot of reach at this point with my social selling process that I've had in place for a long time. I know that my Rolodex is a targeted online Rolodex of my end prospects, and I'm engaging with them on a regular basis, not just through posting, but through messaging. The LinkedIn algorithm takes all that into account. So if you have an event and you've been engaging with your network, it will show that event to your network. So you will have the opportunity to selectively choose who you want to invite. But keep in mind, with this new process that LinkedIn has launched, they're pushing this, right? So it's going to be right in the feed. It's going to be right in the message feed. They're going to have the reminder as your event is about to start. So do that going forward. Stay disciplined with it. That's for me too. I need to drink my own Kool-Aid. I did not do the LinkedIn event this week just because I've been so busy. So my takeaway there is I'm going to have my staff manage that for me. And if you have an admin in place and you can do that whenever you have an event, I strongly recommend you do. But that's last week. Go back and check it out if you didn't see that. This week, we are going to just cover telemarketing briefly, right? So I'm going to go through the standard intro, and then I'm going to jump into telemarketing and what we've seen work, and honestly why we've stayed away from this to a large degree as its own offering. We really like telemarketing to be incorporated with other campaigns, to be a coordinated effort. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you my process. Whether you like it or not, should hopefully add some value. So who am I? Why should you care? I run BizNexus, BN.Digital, and I've been in this space, this business acquisition sales space, for the duration of my career. BizNexus is our platform for auction-based deal flow for publicly listed private companies. That sounds confusing, but basically if brokers are repping deals that they can put out teasers to the world, BizNexus is a platform that is going to help match you with those deals. BN.Digital, all we do is off-market deal flow. So we cover this process that we go through every week here. We call it social selling. And the whole point is to build up a targeted network of your end prospects and your referral prospects over time, stay engaged, move them down the funnel, and have a network that is essentially growing itself, feeding on itself over time, right? So everybody has been talking about the value of referral sources in this market. And if you can put a system in place to really scale that up, to make sure that you're getting in front of the right financial advisors, accountants, lawyers at scale, you're staying in front of them so that your value prop is top of mind. That is something that, with the advent of technology and social selling platforms like LinkedIn, that makes this very, very powerful, and something that you need to be on the front edge of moving forward into this environment, regardless of what happens with the pandemic. This is not going away. The 5 stages that we cover routinely in these webinars: optimizing your profile to make sure it actually makes sense to your end target prospect, less about you, more about them; targeting and the value of nailing your targeting before you launch any campaign so that you minimize wasted time downstream; building very, very specific campaigns. By that, I mean campaigns that are laser targeted on your end prospect. So any sort of outreach should be directly focused on that end prospect. So a business owner should be receiving messaging only relevant to the pain points of a business owner. A financial advisor should be receiving messages only relevant to the value add that you offer for a financial advisor if you get on the phone with them, et cetera, et cetera. nothing generic that doesn't convert, especially in today's environment where everything online has gotten just so noisy since the advent of COVID. Nurturing how to do that correctly, how to do that economically, and how to do that systematically. That's the most important thing, making sure that you're staying disciplined with your posting, getting people into a newsletter that is adding value. Again, less about you, more about them, focus on adding value, but you want to have the clear call to action to convert, to capture. That's the final stage of social selling, where you want to make sure you have the right hooks in place, the right tasks in place at the right time to be able to get these prospects when they're finally ready to have a conversation about exit planning, business valuation, whatever that sit down goal is for you. Hopefully you have been nurturing these prospects. They know enough about you, you know enough about them. They've seen your social proof so that they're likely to reach out to you when they're finally ready to have that high ticket conversation. End goal of everything that we talk about on these webinars is that sit down, right? Whatever that goal is, to take your marketing qualified leads, turn them into sales qualified leads, have a cup of coffee, sit down at a table, and whatever it is, you're turning that online relationship into a real world relationship that hopefully will lead to a real world engagement. Right? Deal flow funnel, I'm not going to go through this in depth, but basically this is our process. The top of the funnel, think of that like a conference where you're meeting people and you're assessing whether there's enough overlap for you to potentially do business in the future, have further conversations, and then nurturing your prospects through mid to bottom of the funnel to get to the point where, hey, I'm thinking about my options for selling my business. Let's sit down and have a talk about what that exit path might look like for me, that kind of thing. Updates, nothing huge. Just keep in mind, we are actively working on integrations with BizNexus, making sure that the platform plays nice with all the other tools that you guys are using out there. And that's all going live this quarter and next quarter. So that should offer tremendous value in terms of targeted traffic, number one, but then just making sure that BizNexus actually fits into your deal origination stack. That's really what we're focused on. The algorithm, again, if you haven't completed your profile, you are officially losing right now because you're not getting matched. That's it. So if you don't have a photo, if you haven't gone in and updated your preferences, and if you don't have a summary, you're not getting matched with your end prospects. So business intermediaries, you're not going to get matched with buyers or sellers, and buyers, you're not going to be likely to get in front of the business brokers, especially on competitive deals, because we are prioritizing completed profiles over incomplete profiles. So that's the only update I'll put in there, and we'll get into it. So today, telemarketing is a capture technique, right? So it's like cold email. You're aiming, you're firing, and you're just hitting your prospects right between the eyes. That's it. There's nothing subtle about it. You're going right for it. Some things to note: make sure targeting and data. I go through that over and over and over again for everything we talk about, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's email, telemarketing. This is also very, very important, and we'll get more into why that is. Telemarketing, it's my strong opinion that you should only do telemarketing as part of an integrated campaign, right? So that's especially if you are an intermediary and you're surviving on commission and you're trying to build up a business over time. You're trying to build up a valuable network over time. You're trying to build up a referral network over time, because every landed transaction, that's your best referral. That's the best social proof you can have. You want to be careful with your brand with something like telemarketing, and we'll get more into that. But if it's part of a coordinated campaign, that's what I've seen be really effective. You want to make sure that your objectives are very clear, especially if you're working with a third-party service, so that they're not going off the reservation with your brand with a very powerful tool like this. So you want to put KPIs in place, how many calls per day. You want to make sure that you know exactly what the third-party service you're partnered with is doing, and that you're setting clear goals, especially if they're overseas. I don't recommend that. I think it's dangerous, but if you have somebody who you're working with and you're comfortable, and it's about knowing who you're working with if you're going to work with any third-party service. The best process for any new relationship with a team is to make sure that you're having regular team progress reports, right? So do it in a Zoom, make sure that they are giving you the calls that were made, the results, conversion stats. You should have that. And then if you have some landed prospects, if you have meetings with landed prospects, if you have a good call and you feel like you have a window to just ask them about the service, do it, right? Hear it from the horse's mouth. Find out exactly how the call went, how they approached. Did they get you directly? Did they go in through an admin? Had the admin been complaining because this person kept calling and they finally connected? You want to find out because your brand is on the front line. So, that being said, bargain shop at your own risk with anything related to telemarketing. What do I love about this tool? It's outbound. I mean, this is how I started out. I was cold calling hundreds of prospects a day in Morgan Stanley when I started my career. I loved it. I love cold calling. It's very effective if you do it the right way. It's not scalable. But if you can have the right system in place, it's effective. So it's an arrow that you need in your quiver, whether you're doing it or whether you're having someone else do it. If it's done the right way, it's very effective. It gets you right in front of the proposition. And if you can get that, you get that old-fashioned sales rush. You can just, this is what I do. This is why it's a fit. Are you interested? Yes, no. You get that rush. You get that instant thumbs up, thumbs down. That's the good. The bad is that's a very powerful direct approach, and you can do a lot of brand damage, right? So you can burn all of your other channel efforts in one shot. You can burn the whole house down. Everything that we talk about with LinkedIn, with email, with putting content out there, you get one aggressive telemarketing call that pisses off your end prospect and you're done. You're burning yourself in all those other channels. So it needs to be carefully incorporated into a long-term strategy, especially if you're just starting out your practice. That is something that I feel very strongly about. I don't think telemarketing should be done if it's not integrated. I think it's too dangerous. Maybe if you're doing it on your own and you have 100% control, maybe I'm just a control freak, but I wouldn't do that with any third-party firm. I wouldn't do that with any employee unless I have clear visibility into the data, unless I personally can meet with them and know exactly how these calls have been going. It's especially, let's stick with business brokerage because I see a lot of intermediaries on the call today. You can't forget the 95% rule that I talk about on a regular basis here with business brokerage, right? Because the 95% of the people who you approach on your first at bat, they're simply not going to be ready to have the conversation, right? They want to learn more about you. They want to check you out. If they're not at the point where they're starting to think about a business valuation or what their exit options might be, they're getting approached regularly by your competitors. So you're not going to stand out by making a call. So if the call is made, if the call pisses off your end prospect, you're potentially just burning any chance you have with 95% of the people who you approach, because you know that upon first approach, the majority of people will not be ready, right? It doesn't mean that you don't get your brand out there, but if it's done in the wrong way, you're ruling yourself out from ever having a shot at that commission. So again, that's just the power of this arrow in the quiver. So use it wisely. And as part of that, you do see a lot of cheap kind of done for you telemarketing solutions, really, really appealing. Like you see the pricing on these calls, it's direct, and you might even get a lot of sit downs. So I think a lot of business brokers in particular are short-sighted in that regard, where they're really just classifying their lead generation as a sit down, right? But you need to think about, just make sure that you're meeting with your team so you know what's going out there, how your brand is being represented. And the 95%, right? I mean, how many calls are going out to get you that sit down, right? What kind of damage might be potentially done to your brand to get you the sit down, especially if this cheap done for you telemarketing solution is getting paid based on results, because their only incentive is to get you a meeting. And they might be very, very aggressive, more aggressive than you would like with your brand. And if you're geographically focused, there are only so many sellers in your region. So again, a lot of damage can be done. That is why we personally, our agency, will only do this at the high end. So we're expensive if we're incorporating this into any campaign, but we'll also only do it as a follow-up to campaigns that we've already done. Fines, be careful. Obviously, Trump came in and he just, I think went hard on the robocalling. That's why none of us have really been getting as many robocalls as we did last year. I'm not trying to be political. It's just something that got enforced. You can get fined up to 10,000 per legal call. So if you're using one of these robocall softwares, be warned. And then in terms of the do not call rules, hopefully you're working with somebody who's regularly looking at your list and checking that against the do not call rules. Just so you know that that's not only phone, that also includes emailing and faxing if anybody does that anymore. So process typical for telemarketing campaign in this space. Ideally, you're working with a firm that prioritizes scrubbing the data, cleaning the data, verifying the data. You want to get very clear about your targeting and scrub that data, and then put together a script. If you are working with an outside firm, get on the phone, practice with your caller, make sure that you're very comfortable with how they speak. Give them some role play, right? Some objections. Just make sure that you're comfortable with the way they're managing your brand. I know I keep harping on that point, but it is very, very important with this kind of telemarketing process. And then you make the call, and ideally everything is getting put into a CRM so that you can follow it up, right? If you're making calls and you're not dropping these prospects into a CRM so they can be entered into the appropriate email drip, or so they can be assigned the appropriate tasks, or even better, ideally you have lead scoring in place. So if these people who you're calling are visiting your website or opening a newsletter multiple times, they get kicked up to a certain score where that's a task that automatically gets assigned to you, so that you can, from a sales standpoint, that you only have to reach out to the prospects who are actually engaging with your brand. Very, very powerful if you do that the right way. Our process, don't worry about this very complicated graph, but basically, if we start with an email, or if we start with a snail mail, if we start with LinkedIn, anything, we want to make sure we have the data. So you can see who's opened an email, how many times they've opened an email. You can resend the email to people who haven't opened your email. And then ideally, if you're running a telemarketing campaign, you're running it based on data. So you can see that this person is in your LinkedIn network. This person is not in your LinkedIn network. This person has opened your emails, has clicked on the link, whatever that is. If it's schedule a confidential conversation, get your free business valuation. If they've clicked on that link, that prospect is very different than somebody who has simply opened up the email. Somebody who's opened an email 5 times, very different than someone who's opened it once. So the telemarketers ideally are armed with that kind of data when they make the call, because it's going to wind up being much, much more effective. So that's really it on the quick and dirty overview of telemarketing as I see it. Closing thoughts for the business brokerage world. Business to business calls are okay. So you can call local businesses to see if the owners are interested in selling. So if you have the right data, this is something that is common in the industry. Again, check this all out yourself, right? I'm not a lawyer, but this is just as far as I understand it. Established business contacts are okay. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but if you have an established relationship with somebody before you lob a call in, that makes it more okay in the eyes of regulations. So again, if you're using something like LinkedIn and telemarketing as a follow-up, if you've been discussing business, discussing your business, discussing your value prop, discussing what you do and how it's a fit for your prospect, hey, that opens the window for telemarketing. So keep that in mind. And then if it's just informational calls, that's the final thing that's okay. So again, quick, to the point, that's what we're shooting for with these webinars. If anybody has any questions, now's the time. If not, then we'll just we'll drop off and we'll send you the slides. Thank you for attending. We'll send you the survey. Please let us know what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Helps us shape these webinars on a week to week basis and helps us keep those valuable for you. So doesn't look like we have any questions, or if we did, just email me directly or leave it in your feedback on the survey. So thanks guys. Hope that was valuable, and we'll see you next week.